Bruce Lee was asked, "How do you stay so fast?" by Tyson. His secret left Mike stunned for hours. Bruce Lee was asked, "How do you stay so fast?" by Tyson. His secret left Mike stunned for hours. Mike Tyson adjusted the cuffs of his gloves, his knuckles still throbbing from the last series of punches on the punching bag. The gym was nearly empty at this early hour, the air thick with the smell of sweat and leather. He had come there to clear his mind, but a question had haunted him ever since he heard Bruce Lee's tapes, recorded decades before, in which the master talked about speed not as a gift, but as a choice. How do you get so fast? The question escaped Tyson's lips before he could stop it, directed at the emptiness of the ring. It wasn't for anyone in particular, or perhaps it was for the ghost of Lee, who seemed to hover over every fighter who had ever sought perfection in movement. Tyson closed his eyes and took a deep breath, as if the air itself could bring an answer. It was then that he heard the sound of light footsteps behind him. A man of medium height, wearing a faded black dobok, stopped a few meters away. His face was a mask of serenity, but his eyes, dark, penetrating, seemed to read every thought before Tyson even formulated them. "Do you want to know how fast I get?" The voice was calm, almost a whisper, but it carried the weight of decades of discipline. "Or do you want to know how fast I stay?" Tyson turned around, muscles tensing instinctively. There was no one else in the gym. No trainer, no security, just that man, and he looked nothing like the photos Tyson had seen of Bruce Lee. Older, yes, but not aged. His every movement was precise, as if time dared not slow him down. "Who the hell are you?" The man smiled, a flash of white teeth against tan skin. Someone who has heard this question before. Someone who has already given the same answer. "But you." He tilted his head, studying Tyson as if it were a puzzle. "You're not ready to hear it." Tyson laughed, a harsh sound, full of disdain. "Are you calling me weak?" "I'm saying you still believe that speed is strength. That muscle is. That anger is." The man stepped forward, his bare feet barely making a sound on the wooden floor. "But speed is space. It's emptiness. It's the art of not being where the blow is going to land." Tyson felt his blood boil. He was Mike Tyson, the man who knocked out opponents before they even blinked. Nobody spoke to him like that. "Then show me." The man didn't hesitate. In an instant, he was inches from Tyson, his open hand hovering close to his face. Tyson reacted on instinct, throwing a straight right with all the strength he had. The punch passed through the space where the man had been, but he was no longer there. A light pressure touched Tyson's shoulder, and then... crack! He fell to his knees, pain exploding through his hip as if he had been hit with a hammer. The man was on the other side of the ring now, hands clasped behind his back. "You moved." "I didn't." Tyson gritted his teeth, trying to get up. The pain was real, but what made him furious was the shame. He, the invincible, had been knocked down by a touch. "Is this some kung fu trick?" "That's physics." The man approached again, slowly, as if he had all the time in the world. "Your body is a war machine, Mike. But machines have limits. True speed isn't in the muscles, it's in the mind. In the void between thought and action." Tyson took a deep breath, feeling sweat running down his temples. He wanted to punch that man. "I wanted to prove that I was stronger, faster." But something stopped him, an ancient voice, whispering that maybe, just maybe, he was wrong. "How?" The word came out low, almost a moan. The man extended his hand. Tyson hesitated, but held her. When he got up, the pain in his hip was gone. "First, you stop fighting yourself." The man pointed to the mirror on the other side of the gym. "Look at you. Every punch you throw, every movement, is charged with tension. You're fast, yes, but you're fast in spite of yourself. Not because of yourself." Tyson looked at his reflection. The man next to him was no longer there. "Will you teach me?" Silence. When Tyson turned around, the gym was empty. Only the echo of a soft laugh hung in the air, as if time itself had laughed at him. 6 months later. Madison Square Garden was packed. Tyson entered the ring to a hail of boos. His opponent, an undefeated young heavyweight, was the crowd favorite. Analysts said Tyson was finished. That his speed was gone. That he was just an old man trying to relive past glories. The bell rang. Tyson didn't move. His opponent moved forward, throwing a quick jab. Tyson disappeared, not to the side, not back, but into the blow. The punch passed inches from his face, and before his opponent could react, Tyson was already behind him, his right hand resting lightly on his shoulder. The young man spun around, confused. Tyson smiled. "You are fast. But I am the void." The knockout came 3 seconds later. It wasn't a punch, it was a touch. A slight push to the chest, and the opponent fell like a felled tree. The crowd was silent. Tyson raised his arms, but didn't look at the audience. His eyes were fixed on the corner of the ring, where, for a brief moment, he had sworn he saw a black dobok figure nodding in approval. When reporters surrounded him after the fight, asking how he had regained his speed, Tyson just smiled. "I stopped trying to be fast. And then I discovered that I always was." And then, as if the air itself had swallowed him, he disappeared into the night. Final chapter, The Weight of the Void. The days that followed were a whirlwind of speculation. Tyson didn't return to the gym, didn't answer calls, didn't give interviews. The newspapers called him the ghost in the ring, and absurd theories appeared online, that he had been recruited by a secret organization of fighters, that he mastered forbidden techniques, that he was a military experiment. None of that mattered to him. He walked the streets at dawn, observing the world as if for the first time. The wind whipping through the buildings, the smell of wet asphalt, the distant sound of a siren, it all seemed clearer, more real, now that he had stopped running after something. But there was a shadow that followed him, silent as a whisper. A week after the fight, he found her waiting in his apartment. The black dobok figure was sitting on the sofa, hands resting on his knees. It wasn't a man, not exactly. The eyes were too deep, too ancient, as if they had seen empires fall and stars die. Tyson wasn't scared. "Somehow, I knew that meeting would happen." "You felt it," said the figure, without moving his lips. The voice echoed inside Tyson's skull, as if it had always been there. Emptiness is not absence. It's what remains when you stop fighting yourself. Tyson sat in the armchair opposite, taking his time. "And what happens now?" The figure tilted its head, as if the question were absurd. "Now, you choose. You can go back to being what you were, fast, strong, invincible. Or you can accept that true strength lies not in winning, but in not needing to win." Tyson laughed, quietly. "That's the philosophy of a cheap kung fu master." "No," corrected the figure, standing up with a fluid movement. "It's the only lesson worth learning." Before Tyson could respond, the black dobok vanished into smoke, leaving only a small object on the coffee table, a dark wooden ring, engraved with a symbol he recognized, the same one he had seen in the corner of the ring, in the brief instant their eyes met. He picked it up, feeling its unexpected weight. It wasn't an amulet, nor a weapon. It was a reminder. 3 months later. The gym was packed, but there was no audience. Just fighters, men and women who had heard the rumors and come to challenge the Phantom. Tyson walked in shirtless, his old scars glistening in the cold light. He didn't wear gloves. He didn't wear shoes. His first opponent was a heavyweight, a former champion with a jaw-breaking right hook. Tyson watched him, calmly, as the man danced around the ring, taunting. When the punch came, Tyson didn't move. It didn't deviate. He just breathed, and his opponent's fist passed through him as if through fog. The man blinked, confused. Tyson touched his shoulder, lightly, as he had done with the young man in the last fight. The former champion fell to his knees, shaking, as if something inside him had broken. You didn't fight," stammered the man. Tyson helped him up. "No. But you do." One by one, the challengers entered the ring. Some tried to punch him, others kicked him, others still used dirty techniques. Tyson didn't fight back. It didn't need to. He just was, and by being there, he disarmed each attack before it was even launched. It wasn't invincibility. It was something simpler and more terrible, he had stopped fearing. At the end of the night, when the last fighter left the gym, exhausted and bewildered, Tyson sat in the center of the ring, crossing his legs. The wooden ring was in his hand, warm to the touch. He was no longer a fighter. He was just a man. And for once, that was enough. End. The weight of silence. The gym was silent. The fluorescent lights buzzed softly, like insects trapped in glass. Tyson still felt the heat of the ring in his palm, but he wasn't looking at it. Her fingers closed around it, not out of possession, but out of instinct, as if, when she let go, something irretrievable was lost. Outside, the world went on. Cars passed, horns sounded, voices mingled on the sidewalk. But there, between the ring ropes, time seemed to have stopped. He took a deep breath, feeling the cold air burn his lungs. There was no more adrenaline, no anger, no need to prove anything. Just emptiness, and, strangely, a lightness he had never known. It was then that he heard the footsteps. Slow, drawn out, as if whoever was giving them was in no hurry. Tyson didn't turn around. "I knew who it was. You let them hit you." Victor's voice was hoarse, filled with something that wasn't exactly anger, but something deeper, older. Tyson didn't respond. Victor climbed into the ring, boots squeaking against the canvas. He stopped a few meters away, his arms crossed, his face marked by scars that Tyson knew by heart, some of them he had made himself. "Did I train you for this?" The question expected no answer. Victor spat on the ground. "To stand still like a goddamn post while they punch you? To let a bunch of amateurs humiliate you?" Tyson finally looked up. Victor was different. No longer the ruthless coach, the man who had turned a scared boy into a fighting machine. Now, there was something broken in him too. His shoulders slumped, his eyes sunken, as if he had stayed awake all night, turning over the same questions. "I didn't fight because I didn't have to," Tyson said, slowly. "They weren't fighting me. They were fighting what I represented. Their fear." Victor laughed, a dry, humorless sound. "And what do you represent now, huh? A man who gave up. A man who stopped running away." The silence returned, heavier. Victor looked at the ring on Tyson's hand, then at his own wrist, where an identical ring was no longer there. He clenched his fingers, as if it hurt. "Do you know what's worse than losing?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "It's realizing that winning was never worth it." Tyson didn't say anything. "You knew." Victor shook his head, as if releasing a weight. Then, without warning, he threw a punch. It wasn't a coaching stunt, nor a test. It was a real punch, fast, precise, straight to Tyson's chin. The impact threw him backwards, but he didn't fall. He just staggered, feeling the taste of blood in his mouth. "Now you can say you fought," Victor murmured. "And that he lost." Tyson touched his cut lip. There was no anger. No surprise. Just an old sadness, which now made sense. "Thanks." Victor stared at him for a long moment. Then he turned and walked out of the ring. He stopped at the edge, as if hesitating. "I'm not going to ask you to come back. Nor to stay. But..." He took a deep breath. "Don't disappear. Not like the others." Tyson nodded. Victor didn't wait for a response. He left the gym without looking back, the door slamming behind him with a bang that echoed through the empty walls. The ring was still hot. Tyson opened it, looking at the worn interior, where the initials VK were written in crooked letters. He put it in his pocket. It was no longer a symbol of something. It was just an object. Like him. He stood up, feeling his muscles protest. The gym was empty, but no longer lonely. There was something there now, something that couldn't be named, but that made him breathe deeper, as if, for the first time, all the air could fit into his lungs. When he left, he didn't look back. The ring would stay. The scars, the victories, the defeats, all of it was part of something that no longer belonged to him. But the weight of the ring in his pocket was real. And somehow, that was enough. Outside, the sun was beginning to rise. Tyson stuck his hands in his pockets and walked. I didn't know where. But for once, it didn't matter. The world was too big to overcome. And too small to be feared. Final chapter, The Weight of Choices. Tyson walked aimlessly through the still sleeping streets, the damp asphalt reflecting the orange light of dawn. The ring in his pocket seemed to burn against his thigh, as if it carried a memory he could no longer ignore. It wasn't just an object, it was a reminder. Of everything he had been. Of everything that could have been. A corner away, a figure leaning against the wall caught his attention. A thin man, with a face marked by old scars, smoked a cigarette with a shaking hand. Tyson recognized the eyes as empty, but not defeated. It was Danny the Hammer, his old trainer, the one who had thrown him into the ring for the first time, who had taught him how to hit and how to catch as if they were the same thing. Danny looked up, as if he felt the weight of Tyson's presence before he even saw him. The cigarette dangled between his lips, smoke curling in the cold air. I thought you were gone, Danny said, his voice hoarse from years of yelling and cheap cigarettes. Tyson stopped a few steps away. There was no anger, no resentment. Just a strange clarity. I really disappeared. Danny laughed, a dry sound that turned into a cough. When he recovered, he put out his cigarette on the floor with the sole of his shoe. You were always good at disappearing. But not so good at staying away. Tyson shoved his hands deeper into his pockets. The ring felt heavier now. What do you want, Danny? The old trainer straightened up, his bones cracking like dry wood. I want to know if you still have fire. Or if there's only ash left. Tyson looked toward the horizon, where the sun was beginning to paint the sky red. Gray. Fire. He no longer knew the difference. I'm not that kid anymore. No one is, Danny spat on the floor. But some of us still have scores to settle. A silence stretched between them, full of unsaid things. Tyson knew what Danny was offering, one last fight, one last ring, one last reason to get up in the morning. But he also knew there was nothing left to prove. Not for Danny. Not for the world. I've paid enough, Tyson said, his voice low but firm. Danny studied him for a long moment, as if trying to decipher whether there was weakness or strength in that answer. Then he shrugged. Okay. But remember, the ring doesn't forgive those who give up. And neither does life. Tyson didn't respond. There was nothing more to say. Danny lit another cigarette, the match shaking in his hands, and walked away down the street, disappearing into the morning mist like a ghost that had never really existed. The sun was already up when Tyson arrived at the port. The docks were busy, men carrying boxes, cranes creaking, the smell of salt and burning oil in the air. He stopped in front of an old cargo ship, its paint peeling, its name almost erased. Tide high, it said, in letters that had once been blue. A man in dirty overalls approached, wiping sweat from his forehead with a cloth. Looking for work? Tyson looked at the ship, then at the sea, infinite and indifferent. It depends. Where is he going? The man shrugged. Wherever the wind takes. Today is Santos. Tomorrow, who knows? But the journey is long, and the workforce is small. Tyson took the ring out of his pocket. The metal glittered in the sunlight, as if mocking him. For a moment, he thought about throwing him into the sea. But something stopped him. Instead, he held it tightly, feeling the weight, the texture, the history etched there. "I will," he said, putting the ring back. The man nodded, as if that answer was the only one possible. "Then you better hurry. The tide waits for no one." The ship left at noon. Tyson stood on the deck, watching the city move away, the buildings shrinking until they were just specks on the horizon. The wind hit his face, carrying the smell of salt and freedom. He didn't know what he would find on the other side. "I didn't know if there would be peace, or if the fight would just change form. But for the first time, I wasn't afraid." The ring in his pocket no longer burned. It was just an object. Like him. And somehow, that was enough. The ship cut through the waves, heading into the unknown. And Tyson, finally, left the past behind.